Hey everyone, it's Karen here. Welcome back to Service and Practice. And today we have guest Ave Ibrahim, who I know from St. Mark's, where he grew up, similar to me. Although he's moved around, he is back in Jersey City. And also, I met him through events with Agora University, where he is the Director of Public Relations. Hey Ave, how are you?
Hi, Karen. Thanks so much for having me. I'm back in Jersey City for a short period, but I come back from time to time. My family's still here, and once St. Mark's Jersey City member, always one.
Yeah, and congratulations on your upcoming wedding. I hope that it all goes well.
Thank you so much. Planning a wedding during all of what's going on right now is it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, but thank
Yeah,
God.
thank God. Yep. And also, congratulations on recently publishing your article for Agora. Tell us a little
Yeah,
bit about it.
yeah. Thank you so much. I shared it with you earlier. It's called "Too Many Windows, Not Enough Mirrors." It really does focus on looking at each other and ourselves through the windows of social media and how that's been amplified because of COVID, and why it's crucial for us to step away from these windows and look at a mirror from now and then for self-healing, or actually, self-awareness, so that we could request healing and really be in touch with God's grace and mercy in our lives. Unfortunately, what tends to happen is we're so consumed by what's happening on the outside that we neglect that there's chaos sometimes on the inside that requires as much attention, if not more. And so that's where the mirror and the windows analogy comes in.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I think the title itself was really intriguing. And no, I do appreciate that you shared it with me and I read it when it was first released. And for those of you who haven't read it, I linked it in the show notes, so definitely check it out. I think the points that you make about the need for self-reflection, looking inward, bring us to our topic today about hidden service, where it is important to have that self-reflection. Why is this concept of unseen service so important?
I think of Matthew 6. There's a verse that comes to mind. It's the "Beware of practicing your piety before men in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven." That verse is something that I use on a regular basis to kind of check myself. The idea of hidden service, hidden ministry, and the temptation for public ministry and public praise is such a real one. I was taking a walk earlier today between breaks from work, and I was just thinking, I was like, there is a reason why whenever a pope was chosen or any monk was ordained for a public office, they used to weep. And I thought, we're like, why would they weep? And I realized it really comes with the perspective of hidden versus public, and how much of a potential distraction, or how vulnerable you will be in public ministry, in terms of spiritual warfare, in terms of just even social warfare, and how tempted you'd be to start worshiping and serving not God, but either yourself or others. And so it's an important topic, and it's definitely a topic that I personally struggle with, and especially in my role with Agora University as Director of Public Relations. Like, how do we define success in our ministry and our service? Is it based on numbers? Is it based on how much public recognition we get? Or is there a separate and more real criteria that God provides to us through, scripture and the lives of the saints?
Yeah, for sure. I think, nowadays, as you mentioned, in too many windows and not enough mirrors, we tend to look for that external recognition. And in service, we don't want to be consumed with the idea of like, how many people did I touch, similar to how on social media we'll care about how many likes or how many views. So it's definitely important to check our motivation really for why we serve. And I think it's important to do this whether you're doing a service, that's more hidden, like serving the homeless, or very public, like Sunday school. And as our title suggests also, we have to remember that there are services outside of Sunday school. Sunday school is really important and essential for the future of the church, and we definitely emphasize that with servants prep. When you complete the program and you're ready to start serving, a lot of times people want to sign up for a Sunday school class, or they're pushed into that, maybe without even kind of realizing you're now in the midst of this. And I can definitely attest to this need of always having new servants. As Christ says, the harvest truly is great, but the laborers are few. And has this also been your experience, Dave?
I owe so much of my growth to the hard work of the many Sunday school teachers that touched my life. I can name them easily because of the impact they've made. And Sunday school teachers are more than just that, especially at St. Mark's. There were lifelines for me growing up. They were my guide to navigating cultural differences from a young, chubby immigrant boy trying to make his way around Jersey City and the nuance of culture and identity that presents. And so I can't imagine really a church and a future of a church without dedicated and invested Sunday school teachers like the ones that have impacted my life, honestly. And I say this wholeheartedly, and I tell them that I become so sappy whenever I see them, because it really is incredible to look back at the investment, and sometimes even hidden investments, that each one of them has made. And again, in Sunday school, being a Sunday school servant isn't necessarily like a public goal. Often it's not a praiseworthy ministry. You're dealing with a bunch of little kids running around causing chaos in your classroom, and I don't think you get any words of recognition from them or from their parents. Maybe sometimes their parents, if the parents are kind enough. And so I don't want us to harp on being a Sunday school teacher as a ministry that does get a lot of recognition. However, there are other ministries out there that are even more hidden. That's the topic for today, in terms of finding those low-hanging fruits that would steer us away from being distracted, right? And really find us within those parameters that Christ mentioned and suggested for us. There are so many ministries out there that are done in complete secret, and unfortunately, those ministries, they're not as sought, and there are so many reasons as to why they're not sought.
I think before we go into the reasons why they may not be sought after, as you were saying, we need to first understand what are some examples of those hidden or lesser known ministries.
Yeah, I think the Newcomer ministry is one of those ministries that are, let's just say it's not the service or the ministry that people think of when they go to servants prep, right? They're not thinking about serving those that are coming in straight from Egypt, that are in need of so much physical help, as well as spiritual guidance, as well as just being embraced from a social aspect and feeling at home. It's incredible and it's mind-boggling. Growing up, there were two ministries that were very popular. One was there for years, right, being a Sunday school teacher, and the other one that was gaining a lot of popularity is the idea of going abroad to serve and do mission work. And so you had people going to Kenya, Bolivia, and that was great. But then I think about that, and I think, okay, so we go to Bolivia and we go to Kenya, and we're meeting people from outside cultures, and so there are cultural barriers there, and so there's discomfort there. But we're okay with that. Why is it that we struggle with engaging newcomers from Egypt coming in and giving them that same level of devotion and dedication? And I'm saying this, I'm speaking from the perspective of my generation and younger, because certainly the generations that are older than me, they do this, and they're incredible, because I think they've learned the formula of ministry. They know that, ministry is about discomfort, and ministry is about really doing what's in front of you. And so, and they know well enough to also fear having an audience or having a platform that would serve any element of pride or self grandeur. And so I think about that.
Yeah, you're right that it's so important for that service to exist. Sometimes members of the youth will shy away from it. And we have to push ourselves to go out of our comfort zone. As the title suggests, cleaning toilets, that's equally uncomfortable and doesn't get recognition. And as we've talked about some of these services and also why people might shy away from them, we have to also remember there are benefits. And again, no one's doing this self-seeking, but what does come along as a benefit or as a blessing when you are participating and serving in hidden services?
Yeah, I think, you have to think about, what is the purpose of ministry? Why do we serve each other? We definitely believe in a God who provides, but we also believe in a God who allows for us to share in his work here for edification. And so, when we serve, we serve God, right? We serve others. We serve God through serving others, right? He's made that very clear in terms of whatever you do unto the least of these, you do unto me. And we serve ourselves by humility. I think of just a example of Christ. When was it that we thought his ministry was successful? Was it when he was surrounded by 5,000 people? Or was his ministry successful when 3 of his closest followers couldn't stay up at night with him during his most turbulent period of his life? And so, is it about numbers? Is that an aspect of success in ministry? Or is it about consistency and about giving of oneself? And so when we're asked to give up our coat and give it to a person that doesn't have the coat, we're doing something from ourselves, right? Like we're constantly emptying ourselves. The fathers talk about kenosis, which is like emptying of oneself. And so if you're really serving for the sake of praise, there isn't much room to be filled in with like the humility of Christ. You're already being filled with so much praise. There's no benefit in that. And I think that's what Christ talked about. He said, what benefit is it of you for, if you have reward on earth? You're not going to get that heavenly, that idea, that change in nature or change of heart that we really need and we should use as the goal for any ministry that we partake of.
Thank you for that reminder of what our ultimate goal is, because that should really be the motivation behind our service. Remembering the why is so critical. And if we lose sight of that, then we can get demotivated in service, or even the other extreme of, being, again, so self-seeking and looking for rewards, and then you're just doing it for the wrong reason.
Yeah. Imagine if Christ didn't know the why, right? Like if Christ wasn't, can you imagine how dismayed he would have been? Or you think of St. Paul. St. Paul died in a prison cell with no one around him. Letters he talks about in his later epistles, how, he wished to have heard from some of the churches. Maybe they didn't write back. Maybe the letters weren't coming through because of his imprisonment. But a lot of these apostles died alone and died without a lot of praise or notoriety from an earthly perspective. And so if they didn't know the why, and if they didn't find that their ministry was successful by other standards, I think they would have quit. I think they would have collapsed under the notion of, serving themselves, from emptiness.
You're absolutely right. The apostles are, aside from Christ, they are the perfect example of service and of kenosis, as you said, and of being rejected, being humiliated, being persecuted, being laughed at or mocked, and at the same time still never losing hope never shaken. So thank you for that. And thank you today for your insight and all that you've shared about hidden service, what hidden service looks like, and why we should really push ourselves towards that. As we wrap up this episode, we're going to head into our rapid fire questions. So first off, tell us a moving or a funny story that's happened in your experience as a servant.
I could talk about the ministry of others, and this is something that's moved me tremendously. I know of a group of women in East Brunswick area, and they're pretty comfortable, like financially. They're I would say like they're upper middle class, but like the title suggests, they meet I believe either once a week or every other week, and they'll go to one of the church buildings that they are congregants of, and they'll go and they'll clean the toilets. I was just amazed by that because no one asked them to do this. In fact, I believe the church that they belonged to was in the process of hiring somebody to take care of this, but they thought, hey, this is a good opportunity for one, for us to serve, and two, for us to redirect those funds that would have been dedicated to a janitor or something to a ministry that could directly impact the community in a different way. And so that's always been moving. And I look at these people and I just think, wow, in terms of the scale of impact that their ministry is doing on themselves, completely outweighs any time I probably like give a talk somewhere or something along those lines, because their ministry is really, really free of the temptation of pride, or at least freer from the temptation of pride than just directly engaging with people. They don't receive compliments as they're cleaning the toilet. They don't hear about how pious they are and how well-versed they are theologically, or how spiritual they are for scrubbing away at the remains of people. And so that's a moving story, and I hope it inspires me, and I hope it inspires everybody to look for the hidden ministry. Service should be a platform to have a personal relationship with God first and foremost.
Thank you for sharing that moving story, or, what those women were doing. God bless them. What they were doing makes me wonder, would I do the same? And I think everyone should think, would I do the same as well? Maybe it's not cleaning toilets, but it's, again, doing something that's not getting recognition, not getting a thank you, but still impactful, and maybe not in the way we measure an impact or measure success. So, that story is really perfect for this episode. Now our next question is, can you recommend a book about service to the listeners?
I think of the recent book, the name escapes me, but it's on the life of Pope Carolus. I think of the autobiography of Mother Teresa. There are just so many. More than happy to actually share them with you and link them directly to the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I actually like the book about Pope Carolus, a Silent Patriarch, by the way.
There you go, a Silent Patriarch.
Yeah, no worries. I think that the saints, there's so much to learn from them, and it's blessing that their lives have been recorded in books, and we can kind of learn and be students of that.
What's incredible about the Silent Patriarch is his idea of ministry was just incredible. It was filled with consistency and dedication. He wasn't seeking incredible change, right, on the scope of his office, right? You would think that if you are taking over the See of St. Mark's, you're thinking of, okay, this is what I need to do. This is the level of impact that I want to have. And this is my criteria of success. Pope Carolus' idea of success was just this consistency of praying every single day. And it was through his personal dedication that all around him were saved.
Yeah, for sure. And now, next up for rapid fire, we have, what's your favorite quote or verse about service?
Saint Seraphim of Sarov once said, I know he's an Eastern saint, but he said, seek inner peace and all around you will be saved. And I love that quote because, and I wrote about that in the piece that we were referring to earlier on Too Many Windows, Not Enough Mirrors. It's this idea of, if we focus on gaining the spirit of peace and the presence of the Holy Spirit really being our motivating guide and our heart, that's 80% of the job, like as a servant. Like if you have a dedicated spiritual life, a prayer life every single day that's consistent, honestly, I think it's very, very hard for you to mess up whatever ministry you're in at that point. And then it sounds simple, but that's the toughest formula, right? It requires that level of commitment that we all struggle with. I know I myself struggle with on a regular basis.
That's the thing, right? The simplest, the things that are seemingly simplest are often the most challenging. And lastly, for today, if you could give one bit of advice to the listeners, what would that be?
To start small. In terms of your ministry, think of consistency, think of the why, as you've captured Karen. There's a beautiful Catholic saint named Saint Therese de Lisieux. She was a small saint, and she once said, I can't be like those incredible saints out there where I do amazing deeds. All I can do is just do small things with great love. And that's beautiful. And I think I've been trying to do that. And I think the great love is that's the crucible, right? Like I don't know if we could possibly reach that without constantly thinking about it.
Well, thank you for that advice. Very touching and very, very important to remember, especially today where there's so much going on in the world, and just the spirit of love will really make a difference, whether we're directly doing service or just, as part of the world interacting with others. So thank you so much for your thoughts today about hidden service. And, while all of us might not necessarily be running to clean the nearest toilet after this, there's still a lot to be learned about doing service in secret, and then to be later rewarded by our Father in heaven, as Christ says. One thing not to keep sacred, however, is this podcast. So please share the episode with anyone who you think may benefit. And also share the Facebook and Instagram pages that Service in Practice has. And as always, please feel free to reach out with any questions or feedback. Thank you.